Greetings, geeks and nerds, and ways universe, and white and nerdy, and it's time for a new year, time for a new celebration. I'm working on new and exciting videos, which the first one that I have this year actually is an anime that I have never heard of, which basically came out around the same year or same time as Deadman Wonderland. The anime was heading up, but I never officially have heard about it, but it's a nifty little kind of anime that I've never heard of, which I actually have here. For those of you that are unaware, this is a series called Karneval, which is basically like what if the Avengers were the team of superhuman circus people that go around the world and basically save it from evil entities in the world. Yes, Karneval, a beloved little series that happened to exist that is about superhuman circus people, but yet it takes a long time before it gets to that point. We first introduced our two main characters, Nine and Garriki, who are basically the equivalent of the characters that are going around and being basically the main focus of the character. We learn and find out that Cirque is actually a pretty much government organization which is brought together for one purpose, to hunt down and exterminate these things known as Viragus.
しょでもすぐに捕まえてあげるから。
The Viragus in the series are technically like mutants because they're able to change their shapes and forms depending on their birth or genetics, so it's very similar to the X-Men mutants. Our main characters, Nai and Garriki, are pretty much the main focus and plot point of the series. Nai is a very sympathetic and caring person, while Garriki is a cold-hearted, kind of ruthless kind of person. We end up meeting other characters throughout the series, like Yogi, who is an expert swordsman that basically uses vines along with his swords as kind of magical themed attacks for his enemies. The ship's captain, or leader, Harashi, who is basically the leader of the team, or Hiragi as he is also known as, and also there's Tsukumo, who is an acrobat of the team. She also later on becomes the heart of the team, but she is an acrobat of the team and she's also very one of the most caring and polite persons that happens to be working upon the circus performance team. While this anime on the outside looks like your typical kind of like superhero action-y thing like My Hero Academia, it actually is a lot more than just superhero action because there's a lot more stuff happening with other characters. There's romance, there's drama, there's tension, there's everything that ends up happening between these characters, which makes the anime so much more special and so much more harder to complicate. For example, we find out that Nai isn't actually a human at all. In fact, she is actually a human-animal hybrid from an animal that is only known as Niji. So the series is mostly trying to figure out what Nai really is. Is he human or is he Niji? And as we find out, he's actually a lot more magical than they are believed to be. There's also important characters throughout the series, such as Eva, Yogi's older sister, who actually can use gems or gemstones to imitate explosions or something. But the problem is with this series that a lot of characters actually get introduced, but then a lot of them end up going nowhere until eventually the final episode immediately happens for this series. The problem mostly being is that this anime is only 13 episodes long. That is very short and it goes away in a very quick time limit to pay attention to a lot of characters. Though I get it and I understand the reason. They want to get through episode to episode to episode, because there are only 13 of them, so they can't introduce every main character except for the main ones, and every character has to be a side character. I understand. But like I said with this series, there is a lot of drama and tension that ends up happening in between characters, with also some pretty interesting fighting sequences that end up happening on the series as well. It's nice to know that they try to flesh out the series, try to make every episode different, and a lot of them were pretty great in their own design, but unfortunately, by the end of the day, some of it was boring. Or if some of it doesn't become boring, some of it often becomes repetitive because it's the characters kind of doing the same exact thing almost over and over again every episode. Keep in mind there are a lot of characters throughout the series, so a lot of them have to be skipped over or glanced over or whatever or moved aside to make room for the main characters throughout most of the series actually. But all of the performers are doing this for one very good reason: to protect humanity and to protect those that they come to know and love around them, even though they can't know their true identities. It does make the series a little bit more complex and a little bit more fleshed out, with having different characters interact with different objects in different ways or different enemies and the varieties, and it makes the anime go by a little bit more smoother. In anime, the biggest key crucial point in where you have characters is to give each character their own character arc. We get to see other sides of the characters that we never get to really see before. And like I said, the series basically focuses on four main characters: Nai, Garaki, Yogi, and Tsukumo. The other characters are just thrown out the window or forgotten about until the final episode, episode 13, Karneval, which isn't bad, but it isn't great either because it just leaves for more flavor to be offered throughout this anime. Because without flavor to add in the variety, you're just kind of doing the same repetition again and again and again until eventually something just doesn't stick in the end value. So you gotta give it something worth a breathing room. And if you don't do that, especially for an anime, especially for 10 main characters, so to speak, without even focusing on the other like six main characters, you do start to realize the problems with it very early onward. It's not saying that Carnival is bad. It's just that maybe it was production value, maybe it was animation or something that they didn't have enough time to really flush out the individual characters as much as you like to. Because by the end of the day, my favorite characters were basically Yogi and also his sister Iva, who were basically my two main characters. Okay, yes, maybe I have a thing for Iva, but Yogi is basically me. He's like the big brother of the team. He's caring, he's loving, he's kind, he's respectful. And very similar to Tsukumo, he becomes the heart of the team, but not so much as Tsukumo does, though. He becomes more of like the big brother and a supporting figure behind the entire team. But like I said, though, that is the big problem with this anime is that it kind of wants to be a superhero anime, but at the same time, there are so many different episodes that tackle something different, which flavor is the name of the game, usually in anime, which usually doesn't have to always be fight scene, fight scene, fight scene. Yes, I know. But this is what makes the anime confusing because I don't know what to classify it as, and I don't think the anime does either. Well, also, I'm not gonna play every single stereotype, but there is a lot of like homosexual or gay stereotypes that end up happening in this, more so in between Garaki, Nai, and Yogi, and especially not the person that Nai is looking for, Kuroma, I think his name is, or Kuruma, by the end of the series, and it really becomes apparent that maybe Nai is, if not gay, at least bisexual in this series, and there is a lot of homoeroticism that goes on in this. I mean, it's not blatantly like, two people having basically erotic tensions with erotic anything with each other, but there is a lot of erotic tension between like Nai, Garaki, and also Yogi. So it's kind of apparent that maybe that is what the creator had in mind. I never read the manga, so I don't know if this was the mangaka's way of kind of like coming out of the closet and admitting to people that this is the way that he was. I don't know if this is just him trying to interact with a certain variety of his customers out there in the world. I really don't know what he was trying to do, but I'm not saying it as a bad thing. I'm just saying that just in case if like people are kind of against that, just know that it is very apparent, especially in an anime like this. Because this anime does skip around, and it will skip around going from episode to episode, and sometimes you'll forget what the main focus of the entire anime actually is. Mostly it's an anime about Nai finding his true love or creator or whatever the hell that his main lover is. But by the end of the day, does it really matter anymore? because it ended up becoming an anime that is about 10 main characters and it's supposed to be about superheroes saving the world and everything. But then by the end of the day, it actually turns out to be nothing more than a boy trying to find his own true love in the world. And I don't exactly know how to feel about Carnival in that regard, if that is basically what it's about, but it's not because it keeps skipping around from episode to episode that makes it confusing to know, is it really about him? Is it about him? Is it about him? Who in the world is this about? I'm not saying that it's basically bad or just blatantly bad, but a lot of the problems that have to do with Carnival happen mostly with the episodes and focusing on the characters. Because Carnival feels like a confusing ride at first until it becomes apparent what its anime really is, and I don't want to spoil it to people who haven't seen Carnival at least yet. Carnival is really mostly about its characters, and mostly the main characters, like I said, of Gariki, Nai, and Yogi, but it becomes even more than that by the end of the day. Because in all honesty, it's about these characters becoming a family, fitting in, trying to learn what it means to care for one another. That's mostly what Carnival is about. Which I believe that there are a lot of gay or bisexual people who can actually relate to this anime because it's about getting along, it's about getting out of the closet, it's about living yourself, finding your own family and place in the world. In one way, the world can be beautiful, it can be amazing, and it can have supportive people, but at the same time, it can be scary and terrifying to be out there and especially admit the truth to people. But yeah, it mostly is about superheroes, superpowered circus performers basically going after evil demons and whatnot, which is also awesome. But also, it's yet a tragedy because you barely even get to see the characters fighting until mostly the big epic finale episode where they all fight against each other. Yes, Carnival is actually worth watching, but what's unfortunate is that some people might be like, this is taking forever just to get to the damn plot already. Trust me though when it gets to the plot, because it actually begins to become more apparent as episode by episode goes on, and it becomes even better episode through episode despite only being 13 episodes long. But even when this anime ends, it doesn't feel like it's over, it just feels like it halted, it stopped, and that there's more to continue on, but it just doesn't know where to start. Like, the epic battle is great, and then once it's over, the anime just kind of stops. It halts. There's no more anime to be had, and behold with it, it just kind of just ends. Well, certainly Carnival is exactly what you would think it is. It's a very, very confusing, really awkward mess to sit through of an anime. It actually does become better, and its own regards. But the thing is, it does it for me. There's only like certain episodes that I can really categorize as like some of the best. I really tried to sit there and like maybe try to find like 10 out of 13 episodes that I really found good, but there was only just a couple of episodes that I really found to be very intriguing, if not very good in the least. So before I end this episode with my final opinions and quotes on this, let me actually tell you guys about some of my favorite episodes of the entire Carnival series, which actually the ones that I have picked might actually surprise you because even though the plot might sound kind of ridiculous, is that these episodes are actually very greatly written, and in fact, they also are greatly voice acted as well too. I didn't watch the English dub of the anime, but I have watched the Japanese dub with the English subtitles, and I think that it was better for it. I'm kind of afraid to check out the English sub, so to speak, truthfully. But let me tell you guys about some of my favorite episodes of Carnival. Episode 2, Fortune Cat. This episode mostly highlights how the organization of the circus organization works, but not only that, it also highlights the relationship between Naya and Gariki within the first episode. It gives us kind of a look into their future bond, what they would end up becoming in the series. Whether they become lovers, friends, almost like brothers, is kind of hard to predict. But this episode also had the introduction of one of my favorite characters throughout Carnival, Yogi, and his pretty awesome epic debut appearance, which I have to really admit that I like. Episode 5, Clown's Prescription. We get a little bit of background about Gariki in this episode and actually find out that he was an orphan raised with two other twins who actually end up having some fascinating powers about them. The two end up actually being Vargas experiments and they actually had to be fought against, and it leads into a pretty awesome battle sequence that ends up happening through more majority of the episode. It's a very dark yet very sympathetic episode that I really do like, and I thought that I get the point across about why I like this anime pretty much, so would recommend checking it out. Episode 7, Three Nights in the Mermaid Side. This is a pretty cool episode that really spotlights about what the circus means to children, what it means to circus performers, specifically Yogi, who really cares and looks after children that look up to him, truthfully. It also tends to spotlight a few more members of the circus team, which is always a bit of a nice addition to it, and also the theater play that they were doing is pretty awesome. And also this episode was awesome for definitely getting across Nai and Gariki a little bit more, especially highlighting a little bit more of Gariki's personas that is relevant throughout most of the episodes. This is also one of the funniest episodes that you could ever see throughout the series. It's pretty funny, and also definitely has a pretty funny ending for how it ends also too. Episode 10, Beastmaster 2. This episode mostly signifies where the circus comes from and how exactly the circus performers do inherit their unique abilities, which is pretty damn awesome to hear. It also is about consequences. This episode has about a doctor that learns what it means to have consequences when he accidentally uses a Verugo's cells to inherit into a horse, unicorn, goat thing. This episode also throws out us a relationship again between Naya and Gariki, but also more trying to bring up the relationship between Gariki and also Yogi. And also it also signified Gariki's significance to try and fit in with the circus performers and try to find his place with them, even though he definitely fits out from the rest of the superheroes. And finally, for recommended episode 11, Ice Cream Parade. This episode about a little boy trying to find a place where it is hidden. Only for the boy to find out that it was his mother's place, but his mother doesn't live there because unfortunately she passed away in a car accident. The episode mostly deals with loss. It deals with what comes with what may with the universe. And definitely with the young boy losing his mother, he has to learn how to let her go. To learn that what happened, but it wasn't his fault. And it will never be his fault because what happened just was an accident. The episode also tries again to unite Nai, Yogi, and Gariki, while trying to give them much more characterization and also some sort of a relationship going on between the three of them. Carnival is a fun blast ride from beginning to end. It does prefer a unique audience in order to watch it, but it's still a fun ride from beginning to end. While it does feel rushed, Carnival is still a pretty darn good anime if you really sit down and you watch the episodes that I recommend. It is pretty fun, and especially that it mostly is about a superhero circus team group going after super villainous like devil-like creatures, because it also kind of feels like Bleach or Blue Exorcist or even the Gray Man kind of. Even a hint of Sailor Moon, because I think Sailor Moon had to do with them going after evil creatures, right? But still, it's still very confused about what it wants to be. So it is recommended to check out, but only if you can kind of follow the progressive plot as it goes on, because it does tend to forget what the plot really is for the main characters, and it doesn't really necessarily have one main character but three, and trying to focus on all three is very confusing. So give Carnival a watch if you can ever find it. It's definitely recommended. Though I wouldn't be the person to tell you that if the English dub is recommended more than the Japanese dub with the subtitles. But that's just me. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Follow me at Twitter with the link in the description down below. Hit that bell icon to be notified every single time I make an upload. And every way universe, I'm White Nerdy. And until next time, guys, take care.